You may be seated. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My script says Alan Cooper. Let me just change that. I'm Stephen Garfinkel, the Associate Provost of this transformed and transformative institution, the Jewish Theological Seminary. Dr. Cooper, the Provost, sends his regrets that he cannot join us today. On behalf of the board, the administration, and the faculty, I'm delighted to welcome you to JTS and to this special convocation. I'm also delighted to be joined today on the stage by Professor Arnold M. Eisen, Chancellor of JTS, Rabbi William Gershon, President of the Rabbinical Assembly, who is one of today's honorees, and by all of those receiving honorary degrees today. Please allow me to begin by thanking the wonderful musicians who accompany today's processional. Talented duo consists of Jeff Warschauer and Deborah Strauss. And it gives us great pride that Jeff will be graduating from our H.L. Miller Cantorial School in just a few weeks, when he will be invested as a chazan. Jen Rolnick, also a student in our H.L. Miller Cantorial School, will now lead us in the Star Spangled Banner and Hatikvah. Please rise.
Stripes
Thank you, Jen. Today's convocation and conferral of honorary degrees represents a milestone in the careers of all those seated here. These leaders are devoted to our tradition and our people. Individually and as part of our movement and communities, they have helped meet the religious needs of today's Jews. No less importantly, these honorees have also prepared the way for a flourishing future. The broad and meaningful contributions of these individuals are also reflected in the composition of today's audience. Everyone out here. In addition to proud family members, we are also joined today by officers and members of the congregations and organizations served by our honorees. Your presence is especially welcomed as it is a natural outgrowth of the respect for the honorees and their efforts on behalf of the Jewish community. Your attendance here today also demonstrates the continuing partnership that exists among JTS, the Rabbinical Assembly, and the conservative lay leadership. JTS is committed to a healthy and flexible partnership, one which will allow us to hold to tradition while welcoming modernity and encouraging appropriate change. At this time, allow me to note that Rabbi Michael Brill, who was to have participated as one of our honorees, is unfortunately unable to join us today. It now gives me great pleasure to call upon Rabbi William Gershon, President of the Rabbinical Assembly, to share a few words of greeting.
It's a great honor for me to represent the Rabbinical Assembly at this august occasion and to be counted among such accomplished and inspiring colleagues as JTS bestows upon us honorary degrees for our years of service to the Jewish people and to the conservative rabbinate. The Rabbinical Assembly celebrates with all the honorees and their families, as we say in Texas, Mazel Tov to y'all. As I think about this moment, the teaching of Midrash Rabbah comes to mind. Torah nitna bishlosha devarim. The Torah was given by means of three things: Eish, fire; Mayim, water; and Midbar, wilderness. Eish represents the fire of passion. A rabbi must be the living embodiment of religious passion. Passion for the Torah, passion for the Jewish people, passion for human dignity, and passion for bringing God's presence into this world. Mayim are the cool waters of reason and moral wisdom. If our teachers here at JTS taught us anything, it was to have the ability to encounter the tradition through critical thinking and intellectual integrity, graced with our own moral intuition in the spirit of the words of the sages, Et la'asot L'Adonai helufero toatecha. And finally, there is Midbar, the searing experiences of life. Each of us has confronted questions of life and death, spiritual crisis, and the complexity of human emotion, and in so doing, have responded to and learned from these challenges, translating the meaning of the Torah in new and profound ways. We should all feel proud of the passion, the Torah, and the wisdom that we have brought to our communities. We are all grateful to the Kadosh Baruch Hu to have reached this milestone in our lives, and blessed to have had the privilege to serve the Jewish people and our beloved conservative movement. V'ohev na Adonai Eloheinu et divrei Toratcha b'finu fi amcha beYisrael. V'nei anachnu v'tzetzaenu v'tzetzei amcha beit Yisrael kulanu yodei shemecha v'lomdei Toratecha. May the words of Torah, Adonai, our dear God, be sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, so that we, our children, and the children of all the house of Israel, will come to love you and to study your Torah. May this prayer for all of us continue to be fulfilled. May we all go mechayil l'chayil, from strength to strength. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Gershon, for your comments, your thoughts, and your encouragement. I now have the honor of introducing to you the Chancellor of the Jewish Theological Seminary and President of its faculties, Professor Arnold M. Eisen. Dr. Eisen will now deliver the Convocation address.
Thanks, Steve. It's my honor to greet you, honorees and family and friends and congregants, on behalf of my colleagues at JTS. And it's a particular honor for me to address this audience, which includes so many people whom I have read, whom I have admired, whose work I have witnessed over so many years. Our movement has many reasons for pride. Sometimes we forget that and don't speak about it enough. But certainly among the leading reasons for pride in our movement is the quality of the clergy and educators who serve its congregations and schools and other institutions. That quality will be on full view today as we honor those receiving the degrees sitting behind me. Our tradition is very good at looking backwards at the same time as it looks forwards. I do not have that particular ability to look physically backwards and forwards at the same time. So I don't quite know how I'm going to do this. I'm going to try my best. But if I'm not looking your way, please understand that really, in spirit, I am. My remarks this afternoon take off on two efforts in particular. One is that I spent a lot of time over the last few years thinking and talking and writing about conservative Judaism. And as you may know, we prepared a booklet on this subject, which you can get through JTS or available on the web. And we have discussion groups all over the country talking about this booklet and the subject. And I'll be drawing on those thoughts about conservative Judaism today and tomorrow in my remarks. But I'm also drawing upon the more immediate experience, particularly this past semester, of teaching rabbinical students who are preparing to join the ranks of the conservative rabbinate. They inspire me, they cause me to think in new ways about our tradition, and I have to tell you that my optimism concerning the future of conservative Judaism is not only based on history and on firsthand experience with the many vibrant things that are happening in our conservative and Masorti congregations in America and around the world. My optimism also stems from the creativity and dedication and smarts and commitment of the men and women preparing to join the ranks of the conservative rabbinate. So I want to celebrate them, celebrate you all here today, by focusing for the next few minutes on diversity. Not diversity in the sense of background, not diversity in the sense of gender or sexual orientation, or diversity in terms of the site of rabbinic employment, but diversity in terms of the sorts of human need that rabbis are called upon to address, the aspects of Jewish life that rabbis enrich, the qualities of soul that rabbis exhibit and encounter. And as an organizing conceit for these thoughts, I'm going to speak about what I'm going to call Breshit moments and opportunities, and Shmot moments, etc. Together, these moments, openings for holiness, invitations to meaning and community, make for a full Jewish life and for an overfull rabbinic calendar. We are blessed, we leaders of Jews in 2015, and we are very, very busy. Breshit moments are occasions when one takes on the mantle of being heir to the stories of our ancestors. This is the challenge and opportunity held out to Jews, the way that the universal ayeka that sounds to every human being reaches Jewish hearts and minds and calls us to the covenant. The pages and paragraphs that you and I write do not make it into the 5 books of Moses, as did those of Joseph, a first-generation Ben Yisrael. But they do join the tradition of commentary through words and through deeds that has sustained Jewish individuals and communities for many centuries. Some of us, like Joseph, serve in Gentile courts of power. We wrestle, as our ancestors did, with angels and adversity. We rise to heights of love and succumb to lows of pettiness and deception. Almost all of us face tests we do not need and that we do not always pass. Sometimes we wonder what God wants of us, where God is hiding, how to answer the call, or, let's be honest, how to avoid answering the call. Rabbis hear stories of such things every day, and remind Jews every day that our personal stories as children of Israel neither begin nor end with us. This, in the age of everything, of the world at our fingertips in a smartphone, is one of the most important lessons a person can learn or pass on to others. Shmot moments link personal to national stories, often despite our fondest wishes and our best intentions. My life has not been directly impacted by the Holocaust. I am not a child or grandchild of survivors or martyrs. But all of us confront the Holocaust either directly, as in that fashion, or at one remove. Many of us are driven by the command to remember as Jews remember, not cognitively, but in the facts that we put on the ground to counter evil and extinction. The other piece of Jewish history that has overshadowed the second half of the 20th century and still does in the 21st is, of course, Israel, which impacts us arguably more so with each passing year. In 2015, we cannot allow the distance between diaspora Jews and Israelis, which has been growing with every year and every age cohort, continue to grow and increase. We dare not allow our young people to be alienated by campus anti-Zionism and even, let's say it, anti-Semitism. We should not allow our own internal conversation about Israel to be halted or stunted by the real fear of giving aid and comfort to very real enemies. And we can't not exploit to the fullest the opportunity, galvanized by the Masorti movement, of bringing our age-old Jewish commitments to bear in reconstructing unprecedented Israeli Jewish reality. This brings me to the third of the great Shmot moments and opportunities, which is, of course, Ma'amad Har Sinai, a call to covenant experienced by contemporary Jews in the shadow of Holocaust and the light of statehood every bit as much as the Israelites of old experienced Sinai in terms of slavery and exodus and salvation at the sea. It's one of the privileges of rabbis in our day, wherever one serves, to help Jews cope with and make sense of history that is too large for us, too large for coping, often too large for sense. To help people bear the burden of memory, to take advantage of the blessing that is the state of Israel, and to live life in the full partnership of covenant, and to help others enter the covenant's embrace. This is one of our era's greatest challenges. I hope it's one we will not shirk as God's partners in making the world more just and compassionate. The older I get, the more I take comfort in the intimate routines and daily rituals of Leviticus, which always seems to operate on a very human scale. Skin disease and running sores and mold and mildew in the walls, impurities to be cleansed, sins to be atoned for, longed for words of thanksgiving, or asking for forgiveness, or saying hello to God, or celebrating key events in the cycle of life or the cycle of a year. All of these are sometimes better expressed formulaically, ritually, silently, than we could do from our own limited vocabularies. I love Sefer Vayikra. It recognizes that I am frail. It wants me to know and never forget that I am mortal. And despite that, or because of that, it commands me to love my neighbor and not take vengeance and to care for the poor in full confidence that I can actually do all these things. Vayikra, by means of rabbis in significant degree, who are called for this very purpose, provides the solace of ritual and the insistence that ritual be translated into ethics. Leviticus is where rabbis meet Jews every day, people who need healing and forgiveness and priestly blessing. Rabbinical students tell me that their first encounter with such moments through CPE is a highlight of their lives that leaves them changed. Wilderness, Bemidbar, is where adults live. I learned that when I became a parent, and it is where every country on earth resides as well. Rosenzweig knew this, and so expressed a preference in the Star of Redemption for the eternal Jewish people to remain, quote, outside of history, rather than to distract itself with affairs of state. We don't have that luxury. Rosenzweig died in 1929, as you know, before the Nazis made Zionists of many Jews who might otherwise have preferred greater purity and cleanliness of hands, a benign diaspora. But I find the stories of Bamidbar, however disturbing, however messy with all of their politics, to be reassuring somehow as well, particularly as we encounter them at the height of summer, when the days are especially hot and the mess of the world seems especially hard to bear. Bamidbar is the book for Jews dismayed at the lack of civil discourse in US politics or in our own community. It gives us a guide through war and peace to the real world of wanting and seeking and wandering. And it reminds us, super smart users of smartphones, however great our GPS system is, that we are still lost much of the time. We are far from the promised land as ever, and we need to keep moving in its direction. When I was younger, Dvarim for me was above all a program for life in the new promised land of Israel, mapped out in portions like Re'eh, Shoftim, and Kitetze. In recent years, Dvarim has come to mean to me more than anything else Parashat Nitzavim. Nitzavim, with its radically inclusive invitation to covenant addressed to men and women, old and young, wealthy and poor, Israelites, and Gercha Asher Bekerev Machanecha, your stranger who dwells in your camp. I'm grateful for that, and for the further enlarging of Moses' audience to include those alive that day and those not yet alive that day. Me, you, us, and the generations of descendants to whom we, passing on his words, will be treasured ancestors. Rabbis do a lot of welcoming and including today, and we will need to do more in coming years. A big assist, one which I love particularly, comes from Moses' declaration that there are mysteries that belong to God alone and revealed things that give us enough knowledge to do the mitzvot that we, children and students, are meant to do. I revel in the fact that God's teachings are not in heaven or beyond the sea, but as close as heart and mind. And I'm eternally grateful, as Rambam was, for the reassurance that life and death are set before us, good and evil, blessing and curse, and to a precious extent, we get to choose which path to follow. We might even choose, as a species, to save the planet from destruction in our age, and with God's help, I pray we will. It's overwhelming, this word of God through Moses to you and me. Overwhelming as blessing too great to bear, overwhelming as task set before us. How much gratitude can a person express or contain? And this wonder, this blessing, this task, nothing less, is what every rabbi who preaches on Yamim Noraim gets to transmit, as does every teacher in every school, every pastor at every funeral or hospital visit, every mentor to every student. Heschel was the one who passed it on to me personally in 1971 when I got to spend a couple hours in his presence, and I shall never forget that precious Dvarim moment of taking on a legacy. Rabbis, and now I turn this way, I know there are also budgets to cut, and board meetings to endure, and synagogue and school politics to fret over, sometimes to the point of despair. There are people who don't listen and then complain and then don't listen some more. There are Pew reports to digest and refute and come to terms with and get over. How could we not know all of this? We know it because we've read Vayikra and Bamidbar many times now. Freud and Weber and Philip Roth and the New York Times add their own testimonies to the weight of the reality principle, but there's also the promised land which awaits, and the ancestors who need us, and the community that travels with us on the way, and the presence of God who searches for us no less than we search for ourselves. Do we love this? Think of Goldie and Tevye's song in Fiddler as I say those words. Do we love this? After 25 years of service in the rabbinate, all the highs and lows, all the tzuras and the rewards, one might well ask, if that's not love, what is? Rabbi Meir taught that the person who engages in Torah for its own sake is called Re'ah, Ahuv, Ohevet HaMakom, Ohevet HaBriot, Mesamech et HaMakom, Mesamech et HaBriot. Friend, lover of God, lover of humanity, a joy to God, a joy to humanity. I hope there is enough love in all of you, in all of us, to empower another generation of rabbis and another after them with the love of Torah, of Israel, and God that are the chief joys of our existence. Thank you. Thank you. And now we turn to the conferring of honors, the opportunity to publicly acclaim the long and distinguished careers of a select group of rabbis who have left their mark on their communities. The honorary degrees, which will be awarded today, have been approved by the JTS Board of Trustees. In honoring these individuals today, JCS also honors what they stand for: Judaism, conservative Judaism in its totality. Each of our honorees has made enduring contributions to JTS, the Rabbinical Assembly, the conservative movement, and the Jewish people in this land and throughout the world. Each has been devoted to making Judaism a vital force in people's lives and to bringing its wisdom to bear on problems faced by modern society. Each has brought unique abilities, resources, and commitments to the sacred task of serving the Jewish community. Each has strengthened the cause of normative, centrist Judaism and prepared it for the challenge of the future. It's now my privilege to confer the honorary degrees. In today's ceremony, we symbolize the partnership that exists among JTS, the rabbinate, and the laity. Assisting me with the honoring of our rabbis today will be two JTS leaders who will read brief excerpts from the candidates' citations. Rabbi Daniel Nevins, Dean of the Division of Religious Leadership and Pro Resnick Dean of the Rabbinical School, and Mr. Barry Lavelle, Chair of the Religious Leadership Advisory Board. I now call Rabbi Nevins and Mr. Lavelle to join me on stage. As each candidate is announced, I ask that he or she come forward. I now call to the podium Rabbi David J. Abrams, Wellington, Florida.
Rabbi Abrams, clinical psychologist as well as rabbi, you minister to heart, mind, and spirit. Along with your private practice, you are a rabbi at Convocation Temple B'nai Jacob of Wellington, where you began as a volunteer and have seen it grow from 6 families to 120. Before that, during your doctoral and clinical training, you worked as a high holiday rabbi, adult education teacher, and tutor. By your loving example and professional expertise, you deepened the ties among members of the Jewish community.
Rabbi Charles Lawrence Arian, Montgomery Village, Maryland.
Rabbi Arian, for the past 3 years, you have been rabbi of Kehilat Shalom in Gaithersburg, Maryland. And earlier in your career, you were Hillel Director at American University and the University of Virginia. You earned a Rabbis Without Border Fellowship, conducted think tank scholarship with the Institute for Christian and Jewish Studies, and were the first ever Jewish resident scholar at a Trappist monastery. Walking both traditional and pioneering paths, you have served congregations, nurtured new generations of Jewish leaders, and cultivated understanding across faiths.
Rabbi Alfred H. Benjamin, Milton, Massachusetts.
Rabbi Benjamin, you worked 6 years in Israel as an educator and archaeological tour guide. Returning, you became the rabbi of a startup shul in Massachusetts, together creating a culture of participation, unpretentiousness, intimacy, and Jewish values. Now, you are rabbi of Congregation Beth Shalom of the Blue Hills, which as a result of your dedicated leadership has grown to 130 families. Sharing this adventure with Jews of sincerity, enthusiasm, persistence, and chutzpah is for you a great ride. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Morris J. Bernstein, West Hampton Beach, New York.
Rabbi Bernstein, for 24 years, you made Minetto Hill Jewish Center in Plainview, New York, a welcoming place for families and children, and you nurtured Jews by choice. You now teach at the Schechter School of Long Island, and in chaplaincy, you have provided spiritual support for people with HIV/AIDS. Before attending rabbinical school, you participated as a professional geologist in a major project which documented changes in world climate. Your lifetime of Tikkun Olam has manifested in both spiritual and physical realms.
Rabbi Nina Gail Bieber Feinstein, Encino, California.
Rabbi Bieber Feinstein, the second woman ordained by JTS, you are rabbi to the Minyan for Women you established 16 years ago at Valley Beth Shalom in Encino, and a lecturer in practical rabbinics at the Ziegler Rabbinical School of the American Jewish University. The Shalom program that you developed for the Dallas Jewish Federation integrated more than 2,000 newcomers and unaffiliated Jewish families into the organized community and has been replicated across the country. Creativity and resourcefulness have been your response to finding yourself in the position of pioneer. Mazal tov.
Rabbi David I. Bachman, Teaneck, New Jersey.
Rabbi Bachman, at Congregation Beth Shalom in Pompton Lakes, New Jersey, where you have been for 5 years, you have brought a sense of sureness to what was a disheartened synagogue. You perform vocal and instrumental music in ways that surprise and inform listeners. Klezmer, Jewish Latin jazz, and Israeli folk dancing are among the riches you offer. Celebrating the Jewish faith with joyous creativity, innovation, and intellectual depth, you have blessed congregations diverse in character.
Rabbi Nilton Bonder, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil.
Rabbi Bonder, for 27 years, you have been rabbi of Congregação Judaica de Brazil in Rio de Janeiro. Forgive me. Where you established the country's first non-Orthodox daily minyan, and which was the first congregation in Brazil to establish egalitarian participation for women. You have written 18 books of deep Jewish inquiry on topics such as final judgment and applications of Kabbalah, and you are involved in a range of human rights and environmental causes. Your activism is a wellspring of practical creativity on behalf of the Jewish faith. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Joshua S. Chazen, Burlington, Vermont.
Rabbi Chasen, as senior rabbi of Ohavei Tzedek Synagogue in Burlington, you've woven a heterogeneous group of Jews into an inclusive congregation. Bringing Jewish, Christian, and Muslim children together, you helped create the camping program Kids for Peace Vermont, later serving on the Kids Peace USA board. The religious faith you found as an adult sustains you in fulfilling your childhood identity, called as a Jew to repair the larger world. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Amos Chorny, Naples, Florida.
Rabbi Charney, you were inspired to the rabbinate by the Bogota, Colombia congregation you grew up in, and you cherished the opportunity you had to return there to serve as rabbi. Spiritual leader since 2012 of Beth Tikva of Naples, your wide-ranging career has also included the military. You have embraced the privilege of representing the Jewish tradition in areas where many people had lived with misconceptions, and with your openness in teaching and modeling Judaism, you have overturned prejudices.
Rabbi David G. Dallin, Boca Raton, Florida.
Rabbi Dallin, you are a widely published scholar of American Jewish history and Jewish-Christian relations, and have taught Jewish studies at several universities. You're author or co-author of 11 books, including Religion and State in the American Jewish Experience and The Presidents of the United States and the Jews. And you've connected with more than 75 congregations as scholar-in-residence or visiting rabbi. Aligned with the Jewish scholarly tradition, you've dedicated your life to research, writing, and teaching. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Irving A. Elson, Washington, D.C.
Rabbi Elson, now a captain in the U.S. Navy, you have ministered to service members and their families on both coasts. In 2003, you deployed to Kuwait and eventually Iraq for Operation Iraqi Freedom. As the only Jewish chaplain with the Marines there, you participated in numerous combat engagements throughout the conflict. Your courage and compassion have emboldened many in uniform and comforted many more who await them at home.
Rabbi Richard A. Freund, West Hartford, Connecticut.
Rabbi Freund, you are Maurice Greenberg Professor of Jewish History and Director of the Maurice Greenberg Center for Judaic Studies at the University of Hartford, 9 books on archaeology and 2 on Jewish ethics, as well as more than 100 scholarly articles bear your name as author or co-author. Your scholarship has shed new light on the relationship between Judaism and Christianity, while your mentorship and teaching have ushered many young people into positions of leadership in the Jewish community. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Seth H. Frisch, Philadelphia, PA.
Rabbi Frisch, you have recently assumed leadership of Congregation Kesher Israel of Philadelphia, and you have functioned at high levels of American government in the return to Israel and across faiths. You were legislative assistant to the chairman of the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, and during the planning of Operation Moses, which brought thousands of Ethiopian Jews to Israel, you participated in 27 separate missions to Africa. Your actions help write the continuing history of the Jewish people well into the future.
Rabbi William Gershon, Dallas, Texas.
Rabbi Gershon, you are president of the Rabbinical Assembly, a member of the JTS Board of Trustees, vice president of Merkaz USA, and at the heart of it all, senior rabbi of Congregation Shereth Israel in Dallas for the past 17 years. Pastor, spiritual guide, and teacher of Torah, you take joy in partnering with the synagogue's outstanding laity and have created the vision for groundbreaking synagogue engagement of millennials and Gen Xers. You model for current and future Jewish leaders how to derive strength and wisdom from our tradition Mazal tov.
Rabbi Hillel D. Gold, Teaneck, New Jersey.
Rabbi Gold, you are a chaplain in the home care and hospice service of the Atlantic Health System, and you frequently lead one of the 2 Shabbat services at the Jewish Community Center of Paramus, Congregation Beth Tikva. You have served several other congregations, leading 2 to full gender inclusiveness for ritual matters. Through your endeavors, you have brought comfort, expanded horizons, and infused Jewish knowledge to a wide spectrum of Jews and others.
Rabbi Julie K. Gordon, Silver Spring, Maryland.
Rabbi Gordon, you are currently Director of Education at Adat Shalom, Reconstructionist Congregation in Bethesda, Maryland. Earlier in your career, you served for many years in Minneapolis, St. Paul, as co-senior rabbi of Temple of Aaron, a program director at the JCRC ADL, a day school spiritual life director and principal of an afternoon school in Midrashah. The members of your communities have known they can count on you to care for them, guide them, and elevate their lives. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Stephen M. Graber, North Woodmere, New York.
Rabbi Graber, at Temple Hillel in North Woodmere, New York, you created and still maintain the Hebrew High School, and you have been the educational director, dramatically increasing enrollment at all 3 synagogues you have led. You were the dean of the Hillel Institute for Judaism in Forest Hills, where you sponsored dozens of candidates and facilitated many conversions. Serving your congregations in the full range of Mara Da'atra duties, you bring particular joy to the teaching of young people.
Rabbi Susan Gulak, Albany, New York.
Rabbi Gulak, you are chaplain at New York State's Coxsackie Hudson and Green Correctional Facilities and at the Capital District Psychiatric Center and Stratton Veterans Affairs Hospital, both in Albany. Your love of storytelling, music, art, and craft help you get around barriers people have erected from past experiences of being judged. You believe in meeting people where they are and enabling them to reach higher, building the life they want to live. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Jeffrey John Haber, Toronto, Ontario.
Rabbi Haber, now Director of Spiritual Care at Baycrest Center for Geriatric Care in Toronto, as well as Lieutenant Commander in the Chaplain Corps of the U.S. Navy Reserve, you previously served several synagogues around North America. Your ministerial care has been wide-ranging, from hospice chaplaincy to regular pastoral calls to homebound seniors to support groups for cancer sufferers. An energetic team builder, program initiator, and eager learner, you have extended caring to diverse segments of Jewish communities and enlivened congregational life.
Rabbi Mario Sergio Hendler, Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Rabbi Handler, for 13 years, you have been at the Seminario Rabínico Latinoamericano in Buenos Aires, where you teach a range of courses and are director of the Department of Introduction to Judaism and the Department of Rabbinic Services. You've attended 5 Christian-Jewish conventions in Rome, Jerusalem, and Buenos Aires, and you have taken part in private audiences with Pope Benedict and with Pope Francis. You embody deep commitment to Jewish faith and a dedication to interfaith understanding. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Larry G. Kaplan, Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania.
Rabbi Kaplan, Rabbi of Temple Israel in Wilkes-Barre for 17 years, you are a present or past member of numerous service and interfaith boards. You heard a great need, and over the years, your family has fostered more than 80 children, adopting 3 and soon to be 5. Your contributions to the Wilkes-Barre area have been so numerous that a local deacon and former county official recently called you the community pastor.
Rabbi Gary E. Carlin, Teaneck, New Jersey.
Rabbi Carlin, both urban and suburban congregations have benefited from your leadership, registering increased attendance and greater egalitarianism. You've taught in day schools and at JTS as an instructor in Jewish education, and you are a curriculum writer, editor, translator, and educational consultant for JTS's Melton Research Center for Jewish Education. Your dedication has attracted students to Jewish learning and continues to enrich the quality of Jewish education far beyond your own classrooms. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Jonathan Israel Cohn, Elgin, Illinois.
Rabbi Cohn, most recently Rabbi of Congregation Or Tikva in Grays Lake, Illinois, you find novel ways to help Jews appreciate the uniqueness of their peoplehood. You developed Brit Olam, a new concept and ceremony celebrating baby girls. And with the bereaved, you provide the right word when it means the most, lovingly reflecting the character of a person. You have blessed your congregations with preaching and teaching that find new levels of meaning in familiar texts and that open minds to understanding.
Rabbi Harold J. Kravitz, Minnetonka, Minnesota.
Rabbi Kravitz, your entire career has been at Adath Yeshurun Congregation in Minnetonka, Minnesota, where you are now senior rabbi and Max Newman Family Chair in Rabbinics. The congregation, whose own needs you have tended to in so many ways, has joined you in social justice advocacy and has supported your growing role in Mazon, a Jewish response to hunger. You have answered the call to Tikkun Olam in ways you never expected, and you have achieved much in that critically important realm. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Jose Rolando Matalon, New York, New York.
Rabbi Matalon, you have played a central role in revitalizing B'nai Jeshurun in Manhattan into a vibrant community dedicated to serious prayer and spirituality, learning, service, and social justice. Active also in the community, you are on the Leadership Council of Habitat for Humanity and on the advisory boards of Storytelling and Beit Tefillah Israeli in Tel Aviv. By expressing your love of God so fulsomely, you uplift the Jewish people in expressing theirs.
Rabbi Avis Diamond Miller, Chevy Chase, Maryland.
Rabbi Miller, Rabbi Emerita at Adath Israel Congregation in Washington, D.C., having served there for 22 years, you were the first woman in the United States to assume pulpit responsibilities in a major conservative congregation. You founded and serve as president of Open Door to reach out to unaffiliated and marginally active Jews and to young adults with mixed Jewish and non-Jewish ancestry. You have powerfully influenced Jewish institutions and communities and have set about ensuring Jewish continuity in new ways. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Howard Bradley Morrison, Toronto, Ontario.
Rabbi Morrison, you have guided Beth Emeth Beis Yehuda Synagogue in Toronto for 15 years, drawing people closer to God, Torah, and Israel. Your service to the larger community is such that a member of parliament surprised you with presentation of a medal, citing Beth Emeth's Out of the Cold program that feeds, shelters, and clothes vulnerable residents of Toronto. You humbly demonstrate that Jewish law and tradition can be authentic, contemporary, relevant, value-based, timely, and timeless.
Rabbi Solomon Joaquin Nussbaum, Tucumán, Argentina.
Rabbi Nussbaum, you have been rabbi of the Israelite Union Society in Tucumán, known as La Kehillah, for more than a quarter of a century, and also a shochet and a mohel for the community. Never at the same time, I'm sure. You lead a congregation that is at once commissioning the writing of a new Sefer Torah as a gift to its future generations and produces a wide-ranging YouTube channel. You offer yourself as a link in the chain of Jewish continuity, inspiring others to a life with Torah. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Elliot Henry Pachter, West Bloomfield, Michigan.
Rabbi Pachter, you have led Congregation B'nai Moshe in West Bloomfield for nearly a quarter of its century-plus history, and you have spearheaded a period of revitalization, growth, and stability. Simultaneous with your congregational service, you have taught at local Jewish day schools and now have the position of Director of Student Services at the Frankel Jewish Academy. Creativity, vision, and learning are riches you have bestowed on the communities you lead.
Rabbi Moshe Re'em, Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Rabbi Re'em, rabbi of Temple Bethel in Allentown since 2002, you previously served congregations in Madison, Wisconsin, and Herzliya, Israel. At Bar Ilan University, you taught undergraduate and graduate students about the importance of cultural and religious pluralism in Israeli society, and you were a longtime song leader at 3 Ramah camps. Your skills span the congregational rabbinate, music, and education, and you helped establish the roots of Masorti Judaism in Israel. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Paul F. Resnick, Teaneck, New Jersey.
Rabbi Resnick, you have been with Camp Ramah in the Berkshires for the past 25 years, initially as assistant director and before long as director. You have made the camp accessible both for special needs children and for families struggling financially, nurture an active alumni association, and created the Ramah All-Year program of Shabbatonim, reunions, and sports activities. By instilling joyful appreciation of Jewish tradition and values in young people, you help build the future of our community.
Rabbi Mario Roisman, North Miami Beach, Florida.
Rabbi Roisman, at Beth Torah B'nai Rock campus in North Miami Beach, you are rabbi of the largest conservative shul in the United States where Spanish-speaking congregants worship in their native language. Your first pulpit was in your home of Buenos Aires, and when Islamic terrorists bombed the Israeli embassy in 1992 and a Jewish center in 1994, you became a very loud voice demanding justice. You've witnessed the devastation caused by hatred, but you carry the Jewish message of love and respect for all creatures. Mazal tov.
Rabbi J.B. Sachs, Woodland Hills, California.
Rabbi Sachs, an 18th generation rabbi. You took the difficult and courageous step of being the first rabbi in the conservative movement to openly identify as gay. You find great meaning and joy in your current position as co-director of Jewish life at the New Community Jewish High School in West Hills, California, and as the rabbi of Congregation Am Hayam in Ventura. You have advocated with conviction for human dignity while striving for the humility of Hillel and the peacemaking of Aaron.
Rabbi Benjamin J. Schul, Woodcliff Lake, New Jersey.
Rabbi Schul, at Temple Emmanuel, the Pascack Valley in Woodcliff Lake, where I grew up, you have counseled a group of unemployed men through the challenges of job loss, creating parenting workshops, and coordinated a congregation-wide education program on coping with death and loss. With an education and social work, you bring a special sensitivity to the emotional and practical needs of your congregants. Throughout your career, your compassion has touched many, and your dedication to those in need has been a central part of your rabbinate. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Samuel Steinhandler, Santiago, Chile.
Rabbi Steinhandler, you have been in Santiago for 2 decades, first at Congregation Or Shalom and now at Kehillah Beit Emunah. There you have reached out to those who, for socioeconomic reasons, had turned away to the periphery of Jewish life, and you have helped many realize the dream of Aliyah. You have also led the development of Jewish life in Cuba for the past 23 years. Initially trained as a Hebrew teacher, youth counselor, and lawyer, you have been a beacon of Jewish values across borders.
Rabbi Arthur Vernon, West Hempstead, New York.
Rabbi Vernon, Rabbi of Congregation Shari Shalom in West Hempstead, you were earlier in your career founding director of the Solomon Schechter Day School of Bergen County, New Jersey. As director of educational services at the Jewish Education Service of North America, you led task forces on Jewish learning and serving Jewish youth. A leader in expanding Jewish education, you found your greatest reward in teaching Torah, both in schools and in your congregations. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Eduardo Mario Weingarten, Santiago, Chile.
Rabbi Weingarten, for more than a quarter century, you have been senior rabbi at Círculo Israelita de Santiago, developing it into the country's largest Jewish community. You have long been the representative rabbi of the Chilean Jewish community before national authorities, and since 2012, you have been Jewish chaplain at the Government House, the first in Latin America. You have accompanied many people in their spiritual growth as Jews and earned the recognition of Chilean society. Mazel tov.
Rabbi Samuel Hirsch Weintraub, Brooklyn, New York.
Rabbi Weintraub, at Congregation Beth Israel Anshe Emes, the Kane Street Synagogue in Brooklyn, you have led a vibrant, open congregation for 19 years. You craft services that are traditional in practice, but can embrace religious commitments from secular to frum. You founded the yeshiva-like progressive open Beit Midrash, fostered a renewed musical tradition, and have kept up dialogue programs with local mosques and Arab American leaders. You energetically demonstrate Judaism's relevance to today's world. Mazal tov.
Rabbi Harry Scott White, Kansas City, Missouri.
Rabbi White, for a decade, you have been spiritual leader of Congregation Ohev Shalom in Prairie Village, Kansas, whose membership strengthens itself through sharing meals, honoring those in military service, and searching for the divine. You have organized a dozen missions to Israel and co-founded, under Habitat for Humanity, the house that Abraham built, in which Jews, Christians, and Muslims work side by side, building homes for needy families. You nurture connectedness within your congregation, across the larger community, and with Israel. Mazel tov.
Rabbi Jonathan Wittenberg, London, England.
Rabbi Wittenberg, you began your long and continuing tenure at New North London Synagogue 30 years ago, and you are senior rabbi of Masorti Judaism in the UK and president of the RA's European region. A longtime hospital chaplain, one of your greatest satisfactions is the synagogue vegetable garden, pastoral not only in the agricultural sense, but also because you often work there with people facing various struggles. You continually open your heart and deeply sense the presence of God within all life. Mazal tov.
Thank you, Danny and Barry, for serving as the sponsors for today's honorees. I now ask all the honorees to please rise and remain standing. Great. The ritual occasion for applause is after my remarks, but it's good. We're going to do it twice. This is really good. All right. So, you are the guardians of our Jewish communities. You've helped to build a modern Jewish edifice of beauty and authenticity and learning, solidly based on the pillars of Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut Chasadim, a genuine synthesis of old and new, Agadah and Halacha, fidelity to Torah, and openness to the world. In bestowing these degrees, JHS acknowledges its debt to you, who are at once its students, its partners, and its emissaries. Our community would truly be bereft and impoverished without you. We could not flourish without the kind of dedication you epitomize. Let me just add to the script that the diversity of callings represented in this group is truly wonderful and overwhelming, and speaks amazingly wonderful things about the conservative rabbinate. Thank you for that. May you continue to find blessing in your endeavors and enjoy good health. May you accept this tribute as a challenge to continue with vigor and insight the work you have done with such success, and may we together be granted the privilege of seeing a world ruled by justice and love, seeking the Almighty, and working God's will. In recognition of your continued devotion to your sacred task, the Board of Trustees of the Jewish Theological Seminary has voted to confer upon you these honorary doctorates. Therefore, by virtue of the authority vested in the JTS Board of Trustees by the State of New York, it's now my privilege to admit you to the degree of Doctor of Divinity, honoris causa, Mazal Tov to you all. You may now be seated. I would now ask the families of the honorees, parents, spouses, partners, children, grandchildren, and other relatives to please rise and remain standing. No, please remain standing. We honor these distinguished rabbis for their contributions to the Jewish life today, but we also honor you, their families who have sustained them, nourished them, and at times made sacrifices for them, their friends who have sustained them, their congregants who stand by them. You, the families of these leaders, their friends, their congregants, their loved ones, are as much a part of this celebration as they are. We honor you as we honor them. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Steve, the program is yours once again.
Thank you, Professor Eisen. A number of you may have noticed that as the honorees walked past, some of them, many of them, didn't actually stop to pick up their diploma. That's not surprising. They're in this because of the dedication and love they have of the Jewish community, not for the honor that we are bestowing upon them. So we are all in your debt. Thank you again. I'd also like to offer my own heartfelt congratulations to all of you, colleagues, friends, and I have to say, a number of former students. It's wonderful to see you here. It is now my privilege to call upon Rabbi Harold Kravitz, spiritual leader of Adath Yeshurun congregation in Minnetonka, Minnesota, who received an honorary degree today, to speak on behalf of his colleagues. Dr. Kravitz.
I believe I was asked to play this role of speaking on behalf of the class because of my role as secretary and officer in the Rabbinical Assembly, and I appreciate that opportunity. I was told I had 3 to 5 minutes, but we're moving so well that it looks like I have about 20. So, Mazal Tov to all of our colleagues on this wonderful recognition. I hope you will forgive me as we witness so many rabbis being honored from so many different locations that the first text that came to mind as I reflected on this moment was a statement from Reb Nachman of Bratslav, who said that it was hard for Satan alone to mislead the whole world, so he appointed rabbis in different locations. Chas v'chalila, God forbid that any of these rabbis have misled anyone. But I've always understood Reb Nachman to be saying that there is a little bit of troublemaker in every rabbi. From the looks of what we have heard today, what wonderful trouble this group of some 40 rabbis have stirred up in so many places around the world over the breadth of their careers. Kol hakavod. All of us are deeply grateful that the Jewish Theological Seminary has made this effort to acknowledge us in the presence of friends, family, and colleagues. Each of us is deeply grateful to have reached this moment. We all know well that the rabbinate has its challenges and that remaining in the field for 25 or more years is noteworthy and praiseworthy. This brings to mind another text, a favorite of mine in describing rabbis. The Talmud Sukkah 53b describes an ancient occasion of great joy, when there would be a great procession at night to the temple in Jerusalem during Sukkot for the water festival known as Simchat Beit HaShoeva, when water was poured over the temple altar. Our rabbis taught that who has never witnessed Simchat Beit HaShoeva has never seen true joy. The text describes how the rabbis would participate in that celebration. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, it says, would juggle with 8 lighted torches, tossing them into the air, catching one, then throwing another so that they never touched each other in unparalleled feat. Rabbi Levi would juggle in the presence of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi with 8 knives. Shmuel would do the same with 8 glasses of wine without spilling any of their contents. And Abaye would juggle before Rabbah with 8, some say 4 eggs. What an image of our ancient rabbis as jugglers with the most delicate, dangerous of items. I've always been drawn to that image of our rabbis. I suspect that many of us feel that throughout our careers we have kept this tradition of juggling going. Being rabbis has required each of us to juggle, and sometimes it has surely felt like we were playing with fire or knives or eggs or trying carefully not to spill the wine. But here we are all celebrating long careers and reflecting on the balance we have managed to find. It is so important to mark and celebrate these accomplishments. But of course, we must remember that our juggling is not over. We may feel some trepidation about the challenges we face as conservative rabbis, but it is no time to let the things we juggle fall to the ground. It is delightful to be here at JTS and also to acknowledge the young colleagues who are coming up behind us, colleagues who we can mentor and welcome into the field. I pray that we all have good years ahead to continue our effort to advance Judaism on behalf of God and the Jewish people. And so let us pray. Mikor HaChaim, source of life who has brought us to this occasion. Yiratzon milfanecha Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of our ancestors. May we all be blessed with strength for the new chapters that lie ahead in our careers and in our lives. Amen. Amen. May we be sources of blessings to the institution and schools that produced us and contribute what we can to making sure that they and this Jewish theological seminary are vital to produce future professional and lay leaders who are ready to juggle whatever comes flying towards them. Amen. May we work together as colleagues who are united through the rabbinical assembly that is here to strengthen us. Amen. May we be a blessing to our friends, families, and communities. Amen. And may we continue to stir up a little trouble so as to make the world around us a better place than we found it. And let us say, Amen. Ken Yehi Ratzon.
Thank you, Rabbi Kravitz, for your insightful and touching remarks, and Mazal Tov upon the honor you received today. Although the convocation will now formally conclude, this celebration continues. I ask that all of you remain in your seats until the procession has left the auditorium. Then, please join us in the lobby for a reception tendered in tribute of our honorees, as well as to Rabbi Nina Beth Carden, the honoree of this year's Rabbinical Assembly Joint Campaign, which supports the conservative movement's key institutions. At the reception, we will have an opportunity to hear brief remarks from the chairs of the Joint Campaign and from Rabbi Carden. Allow me to note also that there is a table in the lobby outside where you can cast your vote in the World Zionist Congress elections on behalf of Merkaz, global voice of the conservative Masorti Judaism within the World Zionist Organization, if you have not already done so. I strongly encourage you to do so. A vote for Merkaz, slate number 2, is a vote for religious pluralism in Israel. The voting deadline is tomorrow, so make sure you vote outside in the lobby if you have not done so already. Thank you all for sharing in this wonderful day, and congratulations, Mazal Tov, to all of our honorees.